Thanks, Fraser. We're joined now by Cindy Blackstock, head of the First Nation Child and Family Caring Society. Blackstock is one of Canada's leading advocates for children and has her own history with the Supreme Court. Cindy, always awesome to have you with us. Just your initial reaction to this decision here today.
Well, you know, this was an incredible victory for First Nations, Métis, and Inuit kids in that it affirmed the national standards and saying, look, no more harming kids in legislation and other policies with child welfare. All governments have to do better. That's a good thing. And then in addition to that, of course, affirming the decision-making of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit children for their kids. All of this great decision, though, you know what I always say, it's a great dream, but to make it a reality, we got to make sure governments implement these things. And right now we have a non-compliance order, for example, against the Canadian government for breaching Jordan's principal orders. And so they need to bring their actions in alignment with this judgment and the requirements of the Act respecting First Nations, Métis, and Inuit children, youth, and families.
Yeah, Cindy, when you talk about implementation, I guess what would be the next steps here?
Well, I'm hoping that what we're going to be seeing is Canada actually affirming that First Nations laws have application across all provincial jurisdictions. There's been this tendency for them to say, well, it only applies in the province where the First Nation is. That should be out the window. Number two, they need to comply with the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal orders fully so that those national standards are met for First Nations communities, and make sure that those hard-fought wins on Jordan's Principle and Child and Family are a baseline level of funding for First Nations, regardless of what jurisdictional model they want to achieve. Because the bottom line is every First Nation wants to make sure that their children grow up healthy and proud in keeping with those standards.
Cindy, what do you think this decision could mean to the average child in provincial care?
Well, it could mean that they no longer spend their childhoods trying to get basic rights that other kids enjoy. But that'll depend on the implementation of it. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to do more services to get at those core drivers of the overrepresentation. Things like poverty, poor housing, the trauma from colonialism that leads to addictions and domestic violence. Those are the big issues, Dennis, that we have to get at to make a big difference in the lives of children and their families. I'm hoping that this decision really breaks that open and gets people laser focused on that work. Because without it, sadly, we're going to see the overrepresentation continue, and that's not fair to kids.
Cindy, we'll have to leave it there. Always a pleasure to spend some time with you.
Hey, thanks so much, Dennis.